Every second Monday of the month. Today is February the 13th, and we are here once again. Mariana will be here in a few seconds to talk to us about our daily bread number 150. I don't know the title, and I'll be joining shortly right after her to talk about the Gospel according to Spiritism. Tonight we're going to talk about chapter 12, items I think 5 and 6, and we're going to talk about Discarnate Enemies. But before that, let's do our initial prayer, and we'll invite Mariana to talk to us a little bit. Thinking about God, our Creator, the one who gives, and will keep giving us life and reasons for living. Thinking about our dear friend and Master Jesus, the one who came to us to teach us to live his message of love, of light, and of understanding. We would like to raise our thoughts, open our hearts, so that our souls can be bathed by this light, by this love that teaches us, that comfort us, that makes us lighter to face the laughter and the tears, the lightness and the hardness of life. Because with them we understand the purpose of being here, our purpose to be happier, but also, and most importantly, to help the world to become a happier place. Outside of ourselves, but also inside of ourselves. So, dear Jesus, bless us tonight and always with your powers of understanding, so that we can feel the world as a place for us to work on, but also that we can also notice that our inner world needs to be worked, and with you by our side, this work is more pleasant, is lighter, and is more full of love. So tonight, we'd like to ask you that we can not only understand with our minds the messages that we're going to read and feel, but that we can, within our hearts, feel you touching deep within our souls, helping us walk better and live better lives. May your love and your compassion fill us tonight and always. So be it.
So be it.
So with that, let's invite Mariana, and she will talk to us about our daily bread.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So like Max said, oh, I don't like this. How do I make this not? Okay. I know. I don't like it. Okay, but I don't like it though. I know. All right, so our message today is from our daily bread, 150, with the title, He's one and the same. And it's Emmanuel took this out of John 16:27, and it says, because the Father himself loves you. And that was said by Jesus. And Emmanuel comes and explains to us this way. Let no one snore the value of trust. Let no servant flee from the benefit of being cooperative. Whoever can give something useful today might have to require collaboration tomorrow. However, even though someone becomes enriched with fraternity and faith, let him or her not forget the need to evolve infinitely in the good. Earnest workers of the gospel must act against pernicious favoritism. The divine work has no privileged individuals. In its numerous areas, they are highly devoted and faithful workers. Nevertheless, they should not be seen as objects of worship, but respected and imitated as symbols of loyalty and service. Creating human idols is worse than worshiping statues. Marbles is impassive, but the workers in our neighbor, whose status no one should abuse. Let everyone pay the tribute of their own efforts to live. The Supreme Lord expects only this of us in order to make us his direct collaborators. Christ himself affirmed that the same Father who loves him loves all humankind equally. The God who inspires the doctor is the same one who helps the sick. It matters little if Asians or Europeans can call God by different names. Invariably, he is the same Father. Let us therefore preserve the light of consolation, the blessing of fraternal assistance, and the truth in our guides and masters, assured of their watch care. However, let us not forget that we have to use our own 2 feet to proceed towards the Most High. I have some really puzzled faces in front of me. Yes, and I am also puzzled by this. But also, I'm very grateful for having the privilege of reading this. And I do see myself making idols out of human beings that are just like us. Maybe they're better, of course, well, not maybe, they're 100% better, but that doesn't mean that we can't get there. That doesn't mean God loves our less and loves them better. That only means that those individuals were able to move forward, to move faster, to be better people. And instead of making them our idols, we should try to copy them and copy what they did. I'm talking about people like Chico Xavier, Madre Teresa, Gandhi, all those big names that we for sure look up to them, and maybe we see them as gods. But they're really not. They came here and they took every lesson that Jesus gave us, and they worked through every single one of them. But us, as human beings, we have like a blind spot where we can't see that if they can do it, we can do it too. But instead of saying we can do it too, we just rather just look at them as they're special, and not look out of all their work, because every time they went a step further, they also had slaps on their faces. They also had people criticizing them. There were always somebody there to bring them down. And all they did was have more faith than we are able to. They looked through all of those challenges, put up their faces, put up their heads, and went, no, we're gonna fight this because we have faith in God, because we trust God. And this is the first thing that Emmanuel tells us. Let no one scorn the value of trust. The trust in God. The trust in a higher power, a higher master. They trust it. That's something that we say we are able to, but do we really trust? Do we really believe in all of that? And this is the other thing that I was going to say, because I'm saying names like Chico and Mother Teresa. It says here, whomever can give something useful today might have to require collaboration tomorrow. So whoever is helping today maybe needs the help tomorrow, or maybe was the person who was helped yesterday, and today he's able to do better. He's able to help somebody else. So if you, in a sense, if you think of it, how many people did Chico and Mother Teresa and all of those helped out? How many people were touched by their work, touched by everything that they did that was good? But what guarantees us that they were not the ones in needed yesterday? What tells us that maybe helping other people wasn't their way of helping themselves? I think that's more of the answer to this. Helping others is helping yourself first, right? When you help others, you're immediately helping yourself. And there was, just one more thing I want to say here that I found it very interesting. Let me just find it here. Oh. The God who inspires the doctor is the same one who helps the sick. So the same God that makes that person have, I don't know, let's call it intelligence or wise or whatever it is, the same person who tells the doctors, you're capable, you're going to do this, you're going to win, is the same person who's there giving the strength. It's the same energy, let's put it that way, who's there giving the strength for the sick to feel better, to know that there's something else. This is so touching. This is so beautiful. It matters little if Asians or Europeans call God by different names. It doesn't matter if I'm saying Deus, if I'm saying Allah, if I'm saying God, if I'm saying Dios. It doesn't matter. All it matters is that it is the same Father, and it loves all of us, no matter what. This lesson is just so touching and so beautiful that you can go on and on and on about all the things that it said. But I just wanted to point out those few things that tells us about creating human idols, about how we worship them, and how God loves them the same way he loves us. Not little, not more, but exactly the same. And Jesus said that God loves us the same way that he loved Jesus. So can you imagine? Jesus is way, way, way ahead of us in all of this. So if he's able to love us the same amount, it's just I know that parents don't even love their kids the same amount. Can you imagine? Of God loving everyone the same. That's just crazy, but beautiful. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maria, aproveita que você está no pé, tá bem barraquinho de água com máquina. Veio levantar, você levantou. Tá abusada. Você é sua mãe.
Mariana.
Fala de bem.
Bem fala de novo.
So here I am back again. Good evening, everyone. Again. So thank you, Mariana, for the message. It was very, very, very interesting. And tonight we're going on, and just as I do it sometimes, we are going through with the Gospel according to Spiritism, and we go big item by big item in each chapter. And tonight we're talking about continuing on chapter 12, which is kind of a hard chapter to go through because, or maybe easy, because I know that no one here has enemies. No one here has no one that don't like us. So it's easy for us to and everybody loves us, right? So we're no enemies, to anyone. So I don't even know why we have to talk about this. Well, having said that, so the chapter is Love Your Enemies, and last month we talked about the first items of this chapter, which were from items 1 to 4, which is render good for evil, or return goodness when we receive evil deeds. And tonight we're going to keep going, of course, on the same kind of pathway, and we're going to talk about discarnate enemies, or those enemies that we usually don't see because we're not mediums, so we cannot usually see the discarnate people. And so that's what Kardec's going to discusses in these two items number 5 and 6, and that's mainly what our focus will be tonight. One of the very interesting things that Kardec does in this item here is usually he when we are reading the book, when we are reading the Gospel according to Spiritism, he talks to us. He talks to who is reading. Of course, if we are reading a book, well, let me rephrase that. Not of course, because sometimes when we are reading a book, we're not thinking about ourselves. We're thinking about other people, right? Yeah. We think, oh, this chapter is really good for Mariana, right? This chapter is so good for Chris, right?
My husband.
Yeah, for my husband, right? For my wife,
my
so
son.
Right? So usually that's how we take it, right? We take that the chapter of what or the message we're reading is not for us; it's for the others. But we should, for the most part, when we are reading something, we should read those things for ourselves in the first place, right? In this case, so specifically here tonight, of course, that I read the chapter or read these items to talk to you. But of course, that as I'm talking, these words are coming from me, coming from my brain, coming through me, so they should apply first to me. Then, if you want, apply it to yourselves. That's why we are all here. But this item, or these two items, they are very interesting in the way that Kardec starts the writing. Because, in general, if we are reading the Gospel according to Spiritism, I wouldn't say that all of us, but most of us, if we are reading the Gospel according to Spiritism, we can consider ourselves Spiritists. I wouldn't say that a Catholic person has this book and will be reading this book all the time, right? So if we are here, if we are coming to a Spiritist center, we can consider ourselves Spiritists. So how does he start? He starts by saying, Spiritists, therefore, he's talking to us, right? He's talking specifically to us. Why would that be? Of course, that the title is Discarnate Enemies. Enemies that are not living here, that don't have our bodies anymore. And in general, not all religions tend to talk about or think about spirits, right? The only spirits that the other religions usually talk about are saints, or the devil, or Jesus, or one of the big names of the past, Paul, which they don't even mention that they are spirits. But if they're talking about a dead person, who are they? Spirits, right? It doesn't matter if they call it by name or not, just like Mariana said here. It doesn't matter if you call Allah, God, or whatever the name I call it. It's going to be a God. It's going to be, right, this being, this entity. Same thing. I mean, if I call Saint Peter, if I call Saint John, or whoever the name is, Saint Paul, Saint Agnes, Saint Teresa, whatever the name, they're all dead. They are spirits, right? And that's funny. It's what I find to be funny is that apparently for the other religions, only the good spirits or the good people who died have names, right? Have individual names, right? Like Christiane, if she dies, she will be Saint Chris, right? So everybody will talk to her about being Saint Chris, right? But, Mackenzie dies, it's going to be, the devil king, right? Because all the bad spirits are devils, right? All the bad spirits, they don't have any names. They are all merged into this category. If they are doing something bad, they are devils, and they have no names, right? So it is funny. In Spiritism, however, we know that this doesn't happen. Or we tend to think that this doesn't happen. Everybody that discarnates keep their individuality. So if I am Mackenzie here, I may not choose to use the same name when I die, but I'm going to still be me. As pretty as I am, or as ugly as I am, depending on who looks at me, right? So we don't lose we lose kind of some stuff of our personalities, because we tend to start becoming more and more a mix of what we already are in the past, and then joining together with what I learned here. But I'm still my individuality. And that's how Spiritists used to think about spirits when they die. So when Kardec starts the item, in different translations, some people put in the plural, some people put in the singular. It doesn't really matter. I didn't check the French version. But the idea is he starts by talking to us, Spiritists. So there's no escaping. That's basically what he is saying. There's no escape. Now you don't need to think about the other. Are you a Spiritist? So you follow into this. Right? You fall into this. So we're talking about loving our enemies. That's the title of the chapter. So he starts by saying, because before, I have to go back a little bit to the previous conversation we had, because that's how he starts. He starts by coming back to the previous one, so we have to read a little bit what we talked about a month ago, more or less. That's when he mentions right in the beginning that Jesus told us and he invited us to love your enemies. And that's how he says. He said, you have learned, that's Jesus talking to the disciples. Well, not to the disciples only, to everybody that's listening to him in a Sermon on the Mount. You have learned that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemies. So he's saying that people heard, you shall love your neighbor, the ones that you like, the ones that are close to us, and you should hate your enemies. But he say unto you, I tell you, I say to you, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you, and pray to those who persecute and malign you. And then he goes on. So last month we talked a little bit about this, and we discussed a few options and a few ideas on the topic of why we should love our enemies. And because everything is recorded online, you can go back and listen to it if you want to, or read the text, which is also a very good option. I'd say better than listening to me again. So you should read it. However, he gives a lot of reasons for us to love our enemies. But when he starts this item, he says, us Spiritists. So it is almost as if he's saying, okay, the previous items that I was talking about, I was giving reasons to love without thinking about the Spiritist point of view. Now, I'm going to add one more level. I'm going to add one more reason. I'm going to add one more thought to the idea of why we should really love our enemies. Spiritists. So, there's a lot of reasons for non-spiritists and spiritists. But it is as if he's saying, okay, being a spiritist is much harder than you think. Because you have all the reasons that Jesus gave you, and it's kind of intrinsic to the teaching. However, he doesn't talk about something that Spiritism talks about. And that's what he's going to talk to us about in these items. So he says, and he's going to talk about two things. Two main things. There are many things that he talks about, but he's going to talk about two main things. Spiritists, because he starts by saying, Spiritists have yet other reasons for being tolerant or indulgent of their enemies. Not only they have all the reasons that I already talked about in items 1 through 4, but Spiritists have other reasons that are not included in the first items. First of all, he says, they know, look how he talks. Oh, he's not trying not to make it hard for us. They know. So maybe we want to escape now and say, okay, I'm not going to become a spiritist then, because, I mean, if I don't know, it's better, right? But once we know, responsibility kicks in. Right? So, first of all, they know that evil, that wickedness, is not a permanent condition, a permanent state of humankind. They know that to be bad, that to be an evil person, is not a permanent condition. Why does he say that? And I started talking about the good people, right? The angels and the name, they have names, and all the others don't have names. It is as if that the devil will never improve, right? Devil is the devil, and that's it. It will never become something good. There will always be a devil. There will always be bad. There will never be a change. At least that's how I hear. Maybe it's not how you hear. But all the time I hear devil, I hear the same kind of idea. It's one entity, just like God, but God is good and the devil is bad. God never changes. The devil never changes. That's not what Kardec is saying here. And he's pulling us to reason about the idea that we have to have within ourselves that evil is not permanent. That one day it will not be evil anymore. It will progress. It will get better. It will become better. It will improve. And he's saying that to us, that Spiritists think this. So when I say, for example, oh no, that's me, I'm never going to change, there's something wrong, right? There's something that doesn't fit the Spiritist description that Kardec is trying to show us here. So we have to have this inside of ourselves. We have to have this idea that it might take a long time. I may be realist and say, okay, I don't see myself changing soon. But I have to have inside of myself the idea that even though it can be or may not be soon, that it can be changed. And that it will be changed. How? How long? I don't know. I may not know yet. But if I don't have that drive inside of myself, and if I don't have that force or that eagerness to go and to try to change, to do something to be better, then there's something that's not matching what I'm learning in Spiritism to what I'm doing or what I'm practicing or what I'm thinking or how I am behaving. So he says that, he continues and says, this is due, the problems that we have, the evil that we are still, or the wickedness that we see, is due to a momentary imperfection. It's something that's passing. It's not permanent. It's something that's passing. It's impermanent. It's something that it will change. But I have to have that. And he compares this idea to a child. He compares this idea to a child. And we all were a child one day. And people say, and I believe it, that one day I was a pretty child. Look at her.
I believe.
So, he says, just as children correct themselves or their faults, evil people will someday acknowledge their wrongs, recognize that they made mistakes, and they will correct themselves and they will become good. If not, what are we doing here? And if we start thinking about the other way around, if people don't change, if we really can't do anything, that's why a lot of people believe that we should kill the bad people. Because they're not going to change. And if there's no other life, why should we keep them here? So let's just get rid of them. And that's a very simple solution to a problem that doesn't solve the problem. If it solved the problem, we would have nobody. Then a child one day asked asked his father, Dad, what would happen if we killed all the killers? And he said, there will still be one killer.
Yeah.
Because who will kill the killer?
The killer.
And then in the end, there's
Still
no one.
killer.
0 people, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't solve the problem. It just creates more problems. So it's the same idea. So evil is something that's temporary. It needs to be removed from certain situations. It needs to be, and that's correct. The same way when we get the parable of the wheat and I don't know, I can't remember the name in English, but that the herb and the wheat are there growing together, right? And then you have to cut both of them to separate what's good from what is bad. You know, if you leave the herbs to grow where you have a good crop, the crop will not be as good as if you don't have the bad herbs that are there, right?
Pesticides.
Yeah. So we have to use something. We have to remove them so that the good can go on. But what do we do with those? They can be transformed, and they can be reused. You know, we use we use manure, for example, from cows, which is the rest of what they ate, so that we can use again. So everything can be reused. Everything can be reused. So the same way, if we get some say poison ivy or stuff that you can't have together with the so let me give you an example. Like my wife, when she traveled to Brazil, right? She told me to take care of her garden, tomatoes and stuff. So I used to go there and then throw water and then water. So when she came back, she looked at me and she said, "Oh, you know why there's not a lot of tomatoes?" And I told her, "No, I don't know why." And she says, "Because you didn't remove these small
It's
things that are
weed.
growing."
It's called weed.
Weed, yeah, exactly. Thank you. Although the weed that is growing around, because the weed is taking stuff from the soil, and it's not allowing the tomatoes to get more stuff from the soil. So a lot of the food that the tomato would get, the weed are getting. So you have to remove the weed from around to allow the good soil to go to where it needs to go. So if we use this in our society, and if we see stuff that's happening that's not good, we have to find a way to separate those so that the good can keep going. That's why when a person kills, we have to separate them and try to re-educate them so that if they come back and when they come back, they can be improved. We don't do it very well. We know that we don't do it very well, but that's the purpose behind putting people in jail. Right, so that they can be re-educated. Are they re-educated? No. Unfortunately, no. Why? Because maybe we don't want to. Because we want to get rid of them. We don't want them to come back.
We don't care enough.
And we don't care enough. So that's the reason. But the reasoning behind it, even without taking Spiritism into account, is that if we do that, why do we do that? It's because we believe that evil is temporary, that they can be readjusted, that we can be readjusted, and that we can improve, that we can be better people. That's how Kardec starts the items. As I usually say, I'm never able to go through the whole thing, talking specifically about all the details. So my suggestion, as always, is for you to read the text after, so that you can get more stuff from what I'm saying. But that's the first paragraph. So this is the first idea that we have to have always in mind, not only for ourselves, but for the others. if someone did something wrong, the person can get better. If I did something wrong, I can get better. I can do better next time. So we have to have that in mind. We have to have that within ourselves to allow us to grow, to learn to forgive ourselves for the mistakes that we make. But he is talking about discarnate enemies, people that died. And that's the second reason that Spiritists should really pay attention to this, to the love your enemies teaching, is that we know that when we die, we don't die. That's mainly what he is talking about here, is that when we die, we don't die. And that's a big, big problem, or that can be a big, big problem. Because if we die, or when we die, because we will all die one day, when we die, knowing that we will not die, everything that I am here right now, that I am feeling right now, or that other person that doesn't like me is feeling right now, it will not die as well. It will still be there. And what is now that the other person is not here anymore, depending on the attachment, on the connection that we have, that connection still exists. That connection is still strong. And to some degree, it can be even stronger. Because now, if we hate each other, and I can move to a different country, we're not going to see each other. If I block people on Facebook or on Instagram, they will never hear of me anymore. I'll never hear their stories anymore. I'm going to be far away. There will be a connection, yes, because I can think about it, the other person can think about it, and we can still be emitting those bad thoughts. But we're physically here on earth. This physical connection is less strong because we don't have that much power physically to do something physical to the other person, especially if they're very, very far away. But once we die, if I have that power, and if my hatred, and if my bad feeling for someone is so strong, is very strong, I can easily come back and be close. Because we still have a bond. We still have a connection. It doesn't matter if it's a good connection or it is a connection. Because I was not able to cut it. I was not able to free ourselves. And the other thing is, when we say enemies, right? From my perspective, it is as if the other person is my enemy. But if we have this bad connection between us, is it me that have, or did I create the enmity? Is it me that still have that, so if we use a magnet, right? If we use a magnet, is it me that are attracting the other person with my hatred, with my feelings of anguish, of whatever the bad feeling is?
We also have the mentality of thinking of an enemy of being a third person or a second person, but we forget that we can be our own enemies,
As
and
well.
that is even worse.
Yeah, because we cannot. How do we disconnect from myself, right? In that sense, yeah. And if I have that, if I don't find a way to cut those ties, to the other person, and now not even physically here anymore, but discarnate, that tie will link me to the other person forever. And how do we break a tie of hatred, if not replacing it? Not immediately, but at least slowly and little by little, from hatred to love. Because as some people say that hatred and love, they are the same thing. It's just that we made love sick. And some people tend to say that, oh no, I am indifferent to that person. Just the fact that I'm saying that I'm indifferent, I'm saying that I'm connected to the other person. It doesn't matter what name we call. Maybe I don't have that feeling of hatred. Maybe that's what I want to say. But I'm still connected, because if I'm thinking, or if that name is mentioned and something awakes in me, it means that I'm still attached to the other person. It doesn't matter if I'm indifferent, or I'm this, or I'm that, or it's a good start point, but it's not the solution of the problem, or to the problem. The solution to the problem, Kardec started talking about in the previous items. When he says, we don't need to, when we say love our enemies, and he goes in this and discusses this in the item, he's not saying for us to bring the person to the house. He's not saying, and he says that in his words, he says, I don't want, when Jesus says love your enemies, he's not saying, oh, give them the same type of attention or of caress or hugs or that you to do to the person that you love. No, that's not what he's talking about. But he says, what he's saying is, don't wish bad things to the other person. Wish good things to the other person. Pray for the other person to get better. That's what love means in that sense. Because from then, one day, we can transform this love that's only far away to a love that's closer. Mariana said something about the message here that is our goal. It's the ultimate goal. Mariana said, God loves us the same, equally. What does that mean? And she said, it is very hard. It is hard even to fathom this, to understand what that means. It is really hard. Because what we are saying when we say that is that, let's think about, the worst person that we can think of. You might have like different ideas. But let's go to one of the top of the list, Hitler. Let's go to one of the top of the list. How do you think God loves Hitler? How hard it is for us to understand this. It is very hard because we have no idea what kind of love that is. We have no idea. The only idea that we have is it's true, period. But it is hard for us. That's the goal. That's the ultimate goal. We are so far away that we cannot even start to understand. But how do we start to walk towards that goal? Spiritists. That's how he starts. Spiritists. And that's how we should look at ourselves. Not to say that, Cristiani needs to do that. No. If you need to do that, that's your decision. Not my decision. My decision needs to be my decision. He's saying Spiritists have yet another reason to follow Jesus' idea. He says in the first items, pray for the ones who are bad. Wish them well. Wish that they can succeed in their good deeds. That's the beginning of one day maybe having that person that we hate so much by our side. And we say, I love you. But not say just words out. Say words in.
Or not say words, just show.
Just show, just be, just feel. right? The moment that I'm there, I am there, period. There's nothing behind. Not even if another thing that's a little before God to us, which is Jesus, and to think about He is being there, He is there in a cross, being killed, and He looks at us and asks God to forgive us because we don't know what we are doing. That's this beginning that we're talking about. But it's a beginning that's already far away from us. But it's a beginning, right? And it like I said, I think last time I was here, I can't remember, but it's utopic. It's something that we think that may never happen. But even if it may never happen, it is a place that we look, or is an objective, is a goal that we should look and say, I want to be there one day. Then let's start moving towards. If it's small steps, doesn't matter. Because one of our problems, especially these days, is that we want everything all at once, at this moment, at this second. That's one big problem that we have these days. Nothing can wait anymore. Nothing can wait. Everything needs to be solved right now. How much time does it take for a woman to give birth to a baby?
My baby for 9 months.
Your babies.
Yeah, because some women has before 9 months.
Yeah.
That's true.
But would you prefer to have it at 7 months, the way it is now?
No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
no.
That's the thing.
No.
We want it right now, but we don't want the consequences of the right now.
No.
We want it to be the same way it would be at 9 months, right? But it can't. And that's the big problem. And it's been 100,000 years of women having babies. And in 100,000 years, babies are still born in 9 months. But now we want everything to be quicker, everything to be right now. And we feel frustrated because we cannot change at this pace. The world will not change at this pace. We want everything to be changed now, and so we need to start doing.
I heard something very interesting, that the humanity mature level at this point is between 2 years old and I think 7. And at that age, you are extremely spoiled. And you want everything the way you want it, and you want it right now, and your parents just don't want to deal with your crying, so they'll just handle it to you. And we're so used to that, that's why we're like, we want it now. But it was very interesting the way that they put it out, and it's so true.
Yeah, that's how we are living. And I don't know if that's how we lived in the past. I don't know if like 60, 70, 80, 200 years ago, if we didn't want things to be done quicker, maybe we did, and that's why we started inventing things. But now that's where we are living, and we know that. Divaldo, which he will be here in Massachusetts the end of March, and he will be in New York by the end of March. He will be traveling, and this will be, as they let us know, his last trip, his last international trip. He's 92 years old. He can barely walk anymore. He doesn't do his talks standing anymore. He needs to be sit. He cannot be standing up for 2 hours or whatever. So it's been 3 years, I guess, because of the pandemic and all that stuff, and he's going to be back. And there's one big famous story of him that he tells in some of his talks, and it's very, very famous. It's what's the name of I think it's the Iron Mask guy or something like that he says.
Yeah.
That it was his, it was a big, a spirit, an enemy of him that was discarnate. And he tells his story, if you can, we can find it here on the internet. And it has so much to do with what we're talking that I'm just gonna, finish with this story. And it has something to do with what we're just talking here. At this moment of something that happens, we want to fix things very quickly. And he says that there was this spirit that wouldn't let him go at any time. It was like an obsessor to him all the time, trying to make things go bad and following him and, all the time. It doesn't matter what he did. Didn't matter what he did. And he did nothing. And he was, year after year for a very long time. He tells how much time. But he kept doing what he was doing. He kept working, and we know, it's been more than 70 years. I think it's 75 years now that he's been doing what he does, like traveling, writing. So I don't know. Let's say it was let's shoot low. I don't remember, but let's shoot 20 years. Can you imagine? How old are we right now? Let's think about 20 years ago. It doesn't matter if. Some people were not even born, I guess, but some people would look exactly the same. Me, right? Exactly the same 20 years ago. Nothing changed. So you can imagine 20 years and you're doing whatever you wanted, whatever you're doing, doing the good stuff, doing what he did, and nothing changes. The spirit keeps pounding it, bothering. And then one day, Joana, I think, Mansão do Caminho, at the Dimension of the Way, they received babies, and he adopted lots of babies. So lots of the kids they are his sons, adopted sons. And so he has responsibility to all of them. And one day he received, just like any other day, he received this baby, and that was, I don't know exactly all the details. I'm terrible with details, but it was this baby that changed everything.
The baby was the mother of
because the baby was the mother of the spirit, and because he received the baby. But even after receiving the baby, he didn't stop, as far as I can remember, bothering him. But once he saw how much love Divaldo was putting not only to that baby, but to all the other babies, and he didn't make much difference between all the sons, and he loved him, the Spirit said, okay, you won me over. It's not about loving the other one. And Kardec talks about this. It's not about, necessarily loving the other one. But sometimes the other one will change by looking at how you behave in life. And showing to yourself, not to the other, that you're striving to do your best. That you're really doing the best that you can. And the example serves as an example for the other one. Said, yeah, I'll give him a trust because he is really trying. The person might not even like to give it, but as we say in English, well, I'll hand it to you because you're really trying to do it, even though you may not succeed. But what power does hate have when you keep doing love? You're loving the other one back. It will come to a point where yeah, there's nothing else that I can do.
And how beautiful it is to see that God gave him the opportunity through that child.
Exactly. And so with us, it's exactly the same. If we keep compounding on the bad side, returning evil for evil, the cycle never ends. Never ends. Like I said, oh, let's kill all the killers. 0 people left on earth. Because I'm a killer if I'm killing the others, so I have to be killed too. 0 people. It's the same idea. So we have to revert or inverse, do it differently. So 2 reasons that Kardec says so that we can finish. 2 reasons. They can change. We can change. And if we believe that we can change, they can change. Otherwise, there's no point in keep going. And we know that we have to keep going. And the other reason is, let's love while we are walking here. Because once they're gone, or once we are gone, things can become a little complicated. And 20 years may turn into 30, into 40, into 50, can go to another life, and when will the cycle end? So the more we do it now, the easier it becomes. I'm not saying that it is easy, it is not. It takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of our inner power, our inner will to do something, but it is important. This is the moment. That's the right moment to start. If we hadn't started already, this is the moment to start. To love not only ourselves, but the other ones and the enemies as well. There's much more stuff here that Kardec talks about, but I think that these points cover a bunch of them, and I highly recommend reading these items for us to reflect a little bit more about this. Are we going to have our passes?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Oh, important. So let's do our prayer, and then we'll go to the passes so I can finish the transmission there. Well, thank you, everyone. If there was someone watching us now or in the future, for being here with us. And let's raise our thoughts to God, to Jesus, to the good spirits, to thank them for being here with us, for inspiring us to think about these topics, think about ourselves, think about forgiveness, think about what we can do to make this world a better place. So Jesus, please help us in this path that we chose to be one day called your disciples, for loving one another as you did and as you keep doing, loving us always. Be with us now and forever. So be it.
So be it.
Spirit